Hello, Eagle Spitzer from Punk for the Homeless on Desert Island Vids. Today with me I've got Pat Veggies. Hello mate, how are you?
Hello, hello. Here we all are in lockdown heaven. If it's only you and me, I think I can trust you and I'll take my mask off as long as you just keep your distance.
I will do, mate, always do. You're a hippie.
Yeah. It does make me think that a year ago, down at XR Rebellions, we were mandated to take our masks off, and now the government insists that we wear them. How times have changed in such a short period.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I'd make those ugly Tory gits. We'll wear them all the time.
Right.
So, Pat, we met at the Sumac Centre several years ago. And
Right,
you
yeah.
run Veggies catering campaign underneath the Sumac?
That's it, yeah.
Would you like to give us some background about the Sumac for those people who probably haven't heard of the place?
Okay, how much time have you got? I've got 3 rants that can take probably 24 hours each, but I'll try and keep it brief and merge them together.
We've got up to 30 minutes, mate.
Okay, well, Sumac Centre, which is very proud to be the home of Punk for the Homeless in Nottingham, opened in 2002 as an autonomous social centre, and it's owned by the community, but under the remit of the Rainbow Centre, which was a project that formed in the city, closer to the city centre, in 1984. So our collective history goes back over 35 years. The original project was opened up by people at the more radical fringes of Friends of the Earth and CND. Were involved in things like reclaiming Molesworth from the US military. I recall back at that time going down to anti-apartheid rallies in Hyde Park. And of course, these days people say, apartheid, what's all that about? Although all these problems are still with us, but they're just with under a different guise these days, of course. So yeah, so we go a long, long way back. It was for many years, it was a rented premises, but with all the goodwill that had been built up over the first 20 odd years, we managed to raise the funds to buy the place our own, which is the Sumac Centre here in Forest Fields in Nottingham. And
excellent.
With the other hat on, my day job, if you like, is one part of a seriously underpaid, self-exploited workers' cooperative that does campaign catering, Veggies Catering Campaign Nottingham Limited. All parts of that title are important. The Veggies indicates that everything that we do is, in fact, vegan and has been since day one in October '84. The catering, obviously, that's how we go and do our work. But the campaign is possibly the most important part of it because we use catering as a tool to do the campaigning. So we're either purely as a fundraising thing by going to places like Glastonbury Festival and other events to earn some dosh, but more importantly by providing facilities for things like the Earth First gathering, Reclaim the Streets rallies, Extinction Rebellion, and all kinds of other similar events where we are able to set up a full field kitchen at one extreme, or right down to just hitting the streets with a box of cakes and samosas on a street protest, and everything you can think of in between. And as you can imagine, that's put us into some interesting situations over the years, but it's been really good to feel part of all the movements that we've been pleased to support in all that time.
Brilliant. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about some of those circumstances?
Okay. Well, remember, let's go back to some of the early ones. Back in the day when CND could hire entire trains to take people down to London for rallies, I remember back at those times we set up a little mini field kitchen, camping cooker, gas bottle, and all the works in the guards van on a train full of CND people on its way down to London. I don't think we get away with that these days. Another one I remember was when there was a campaign to protect a peat moor from being dug up by a peat company at Hatfield Moor near Doncaster. the police had surrounded the entire site while the protesters were doing their business. And when the protesters hiked back over the moors, saw the whole line of police surrounding the site, but 100 yards within the police cordon was the veggies stall with cakes and tea, having crawled through the drainage ditches to set up inside the police blockades. On other occasions, we've lobbed onion barges over the police lines to get into things like Stop the Cities and events of that sort. And right through to last year when we set up or struggled to set up field kitchens for the October Rebellion down in London. It didn't. The first day was great because we set up a vegan food stall inside Smithfield Market, which I think was the first time they had vegan food in Smithfield Market for many, many years. But as a result of which, they now have a full-time vegan butcher for the first time in some 800 years trading at Smithfield Market. That was quite a high point. But the next day, things changed a bit when, having then travelled to the next location, we were immediately pounced on by the boys in blue, van seized, arrested, charged with conspiracy to cause a public nuisance for going equipped to provide catering. So, yeah, we get through interesting times.
Okay, brilliant. So what's your first song today, buddy?
Well, that's been a bit of a challenge because I went through my vinyl thinking, what have I got that's so obscure that no one's going to hear of it? I thought things like, what have we got? Things like that, White Punks on Dope. Well, that's not quite a punk for homeless at Sumac Centre. I thought, should we have something really, really bouncy? Like a bit of Get Up and Boogie with the B-52s. Should I go right back to the roots? And I thought, well, let's go right back to the roots. Not that I was there, but The Who, I wasn't actually at Leeds, but as you see from the tickets, I was at quite a few other gigs over the years. And lots of classic tracks, but I think the one that I start off with every time is Won't Get Fooled Again.
Okay, brilliant. What is it about The Who and the Won't Get Fooled Again? Well,
they're probably not quite the original punks. That probably goes back to people like, I don't know, Jerry Lee Lewis and others back in the, how far do you want to go back? But they certainly had an attitude that as a, what would have been, 12-year-old through to 16-year-old, got the jukebox rocking down on the pier down in Weymouth, where I was raised. Obviously, what can you say? High energy. Some of the stuff has got a really strong social message. I'm not very good at lyrics, unless they're good diction. Like when Rachel's on stage, you can hear every word. But sometimes I struggle with the lyrics. But when I actually got round to reading the lyrics for Won't Get Fooled Again, I realised just what it was about the track that really resonated. Yeah, a really good song.
Excellent. So, what was the intention of setting up the Sumac, and how has that changed over the years, or has it changed?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the original place from which we grew, the Rainbow Centre, was had an environmental and peace focus to it. An environmental fact shop, and as I say, it was a base for all kinds of local autonomous groups at the fringes of those various movements. But paying stupid amounts of rent to a crummy landlord for a building where the rain was literally running down the inside of the walls over the electric meter wasn't awfully good. So when we managed to get a place of our own with gardens, off-street parking, a stage, meeting rooms, kitchen, bar. It had everything that was needed to make a really cracking social centre. The idea being that it was a collectively owned space. Basically, it was a blank sheet on which anybody is encouraged to come in and do their own thing. So when people come in and say, this is a nice space, why don't you do such and such? We say, well, it's not for us to do it. The space is here, do it yourself. So it's always had a very DIY attitude. So for things like Punk for the Homeless that could just come in, hopefully feel comfortable to take the place over and make it their own for the night is exactly what the place is here for. And over the however many years we've been here now, 18 years or so, quite a lot of different groups, quite a lot of individuals have come and gone over the years, many of whom have moved on to do good things elsewhere. It has to be said, at the moment we're a bit of a lull, not just because we're locked down, but because the kind of maybe the neighbourhood has changed a little bit. People are working in different ways, so we're not quite as active as we could be. So if there's anyone out there that's looking for a space to put on a project once all this nonsense is over, then you certainly know how to find us through Punk for the Homeless. So basically DIY,
Right,
self-organised. There is a sign on the wall behind me, which I should turn around and read. In fact, I'll step up and read. Sumac Centre promotes cooperation, non-hierarchy, sustainability. We support grassroots groups promoting social and environmental justice. We are not for profit and run by volunteers. So that pretty much, I think, sums it all up.
Excellent, excellent. So we'll move on to your next song then.
Okay, so lots of choices again. Could have gone through my namesake. I'm being Paddy Smith, but I thought, well, Patti Smith, not on this occasion. There's some good stuff from Rory Gallagher that I went to see many years ago. Alice's Restaurant is a good one if you want to have a good take on the nonsense of militarism and how you can be too dangerous to join the American army and go and kill babies and children in Vietnam if you've got a major crime behind you, like a littering offence. That's always a good one. But I thought, well, here's a band that we used to go and see quite a bit in the early days. Although the old Rainbow Centre didn't have a venue, we often went round to the Marcus Garvey Centre and quite often saw Chumbawamba back in the day when they were an anarchist band. And lots of connections. They were based in Leeds, very much in the same kind of DIY ethos as ourselves. I think they're associated with places like the 1 in 12. I believe it was Chumbawamba that helped to pay off the mortgage for the base, the sister organisation in Bristol. They had another good album at the time, which of course was back in the 80s, was Nevermind the Ballads, at the time when there was a real fascist dictator running the country in the name of Thatcher. So yeah, they're a cracking band. We used to bump into them at places like the Anarchist Book Fair and the Anti-McDonald's Fair. I know that Alice Nutter in particular was always always had a bit of a soft spot for Veggies, and we're very pleased when they gave a call out for us off the stage of the Splendour Festival in Nottingham many years ago. But the one I thought would be appropriate for this time and place where we are at the moment is either The Day the Nazi Died or maybe the title track of Enough is Enough from Chumbawamba.
Okay, which one are we going to go for, and tell me why it means something to you, Pat?
Let's go for Enough is Enough, because that is quite a broader message, but it certainly has a good message to put across. So that's Enough is Enough by Chumbawamba.
I think we're all feeling at a moment, aren't we? Enough is enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, right, my wife has just asked me to ask you how long you've been a vegan, and that's about what I was going to ask you anyway. So, how long have you been a vegan? I mean, obviously things have changed over the years massively. There seems to be hell of a lot more vegans around. So, yeah, tell me a bit about your personal history of veganism and what you think about how things are now. Well,
when Veggies was formed in 1984 as a fully vegan catering cooperative from day one, it was pretty much the only game in town. It's certainly the longest standing vegan caterer on the circuit still today. But at that time, I wasn't a vegan myself, but I had recently, through various routes, become quite fervently animal rights and vegetarian. But the founders of Veggies were vegan. It took 2 or 3 years to get me fully on board. So I've probably been vegan since maybe 85, 86, something like that, more years than I can remember. But I do remember, as we think back now, that if we'd known then the situation we're in now, we just would never have believed that times would change the way they have. Even 10 years ago, I was often saying that we might well not see veganism in my lifetime, but I've climbed the hill. We're trying to climb the hill, and we're looking over the top, and we're seeing the promised land ahead of us. But you know, just within 10 years, the thing has totally changed around. The problem, though, whereas 30 years ago, if there was any kind of debate or decision or any kind of thought process going on within the vegan movement, we could make half a dozen phone calls and pretty much decide what the vegan movement was going to do on any particular topic. But these days, it's completely out of our control. But wiser people than I say that that's the way things go, and it's not something that has to be worried about. So as I say, we can't put ourselves all back into that little ghetto. We have to accept that it's out there. But we still have a mission, a very strong mission, and that is, although we can't steer the vegan movement in the way we did in the early days, we can work within the vegan movement to try and get all these latter day, I want to be polite to them all here, but all these, you know, all the young vegans, all the plant-based dieters that are in it for all the great reasons that people are in it these days, very much led by social media. But we need to start getting an understanding about the ethics behind veganism, that veganism isn't just going to Tesco's to buy the latest Ben & Jerry's vegan ice cream made by Unilever. People have to make serious ethical choices about the way that they support veganism, which is why we're very much involved in grassroots initiatives like Snenton Vegan Market, because we'd rather get people going to support vegan sold traders at an independent street market than going down Wagamama's or Burger King to get the latest offering from places like that. So although veganism is now the genie out of the bottle, there's nothing we can do to put it back, not we want to, but we still have a very important mission to try to steer it a little bit down the more ethical path.
Yeah, no, totally. I've really struggled with Unilever and these big companies. I mean, tried to boycott them, but they make so many bloody products under different names and different companies. I mean, I actually wrote a song, sort of product placement in reverse.
Yeah.
Basically saying fuck Unilever. However, I mean, is there any way of telling? Is there any information you know out there which informs on companies with bad ethics?
Well, yeah, we subscribed since issue number 1 in 1989 to the Ethical Consumer magazine, which is now has, I don't know, some 10,000 subscribers, and it's 30 years later it's up to issue number 300 or whatever. But we subscribed since day one, and the Ethical Consumer does have a bit of a vegan steer to it, but also importantly it looks at all the other issues as well, because it's always been very much part of our mission to not to put veganism or animal rights into its own little ghetto, but to say that we are all part of a much wider movement, which is why the Ethical Consumer magazine rates companies according to their involvement in the arms trade, their involvement in nuclear industry, their involvement in oppressive regimes, their tax dodging, so all of these kind of things are important to us. And to my mind, all of these things are part of veganism. You can't be a serious vegan, which is to reduce harm to animals in whatever way you can, if you're supporting companies that are harming human animals or non-human animals or the planet itself. So all of the issues are important, and to my mind, they are all an important part of veganism. So that's one good source. But basically, I think the easy thing is shop local, support small local traders. Don't go to a Costa Coffee or Starbucks if there's a blend coffee shop or some other local alternative on your high street. Support local traders. Even if they're not vegan themselves, they are going to be more to our way of thinking than some big multinational conglomerate that might have some vegan options today, but will soon move on to the next trend if the mood takes them. So yeah, shop local, support independence.
Yeah, again, that's a tricky one for me. But I always find shopping local and supporting independence costs a lot more money, and when you haven't got
that, that's very much the dilemma. I can totally understand that, and I know it is a big problem. When when you go to the Co-op and buy a pack of half a dozen vegan sausages for a couple of quid, or you could go to a vegan whole food shop and pay 5 or 6 quid for the same thing, it's going to hurt. But having said that, shopping is only just one part of the choices we make, and we do have quite a, don't want to just say the hackneyed phrase of privilege that we have living in the kind of society where some of us have got some disposable income. I know that many people don't, but there are many people poorer than us in the world, and often the people poorer than us in the world are poorer because they're being exploited by mega big companies making cheap stuff to go into the supermarkets. So you could send a £5 a week to Oxfam, or you could add another £5 a week to your food budget and just occasionally take the slightly more ethical, albeit slightly more expensive option.
Yeah, because I mean, we only have to look at companies like Nescafe. Nestle.
Yeah, Nestle. Yep.
And I mean, the amount of dead babies that company.
Absolutely. We're very pleased to say that in 35, 36 years, we've never used anything but, well, occasionally, but we've basically never used anything but fair trade teas and coffees. In fact, we were using fair trade coffee 5 years before the concept of the fair trade mark was first invented. So that's always been very important to us. We've Baby Milk Action is a campaign that was maybe a bit more prominent back in the 80s and 90s, and it was also one that Ethical Consumer, coincidentally, have been very much supportive of. So Nestle, fingers in so many pies. In fact, coming back to Chumbawamba, there was a book that they helped to publish back then, which was called Dirty Fingers in Dirty Pies, and it preceded all the Ethical Consumer guides by listing all of the dodgy corporate bastards that are out there and telling everybody exactly what they're up to. Unfortunately, long out of print, and I don't think we've even got a copy ourselves in our archives. But if anyone out there's got a copy of Dirty Fingers in Dirty Pies, for God's sake, photocopy it and share it around or update it.
Did Chumbawamba mention a thorny MI in that book?
I don't know whether they did. Is this the sellout?
Yeah,
basically. Yeah. That's why I kind of introduced them as the once. I mean, although I'm not going to defend them, but I'm also one of the Earth First lines is neither condemn nor condone. So I'm not going to say it was the right thing to do, but I'm not going to also say that I was in the room when they were going through the thought process to say what they could do with the stupid amount of money they could get, and then give it to, like when they sold out the tub thumping to GM Motors, and I think it was GM, and they used the money they got to go directly into anti-GM Motors campaigning, and they would have got far more value from that money by subverting it in that way than if it hadn't done so. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's not my as I say, I wasn't there making that decision. But I'm sure you could tick off many punk icons over the years that have sold out to the man in a similar kind of way.
Totally. Yeah. I think, you know, sometimes we're in positions where we have to make complicated decisions.
Absolutely, yeah. Life is full of compromises, and it is tough. I mean, just this weekend, the you know, 500,000 people out on the streets for Black Lives Matter. Now, many people would have said that at a time of a virus lockdown, that's not the appropriate thing to do. But there was no other time to be able to do it. You can't just say, well, let's wait till one crisis is over before we tackle the next one. The moment was now, and it had to be done now. And if people had to make the compromise by getting out on the streets, then that's the choice that people had to make. I think, you know, in some cases it could have been done better. I think a demo with 5,000 people stretching 5 miles because they're all 2 meters apart would be just as effective as a demo with 5,000 people huddled into one marketplace. But you know, people had to make their choices, and as I say, the time is right to strike while the iron was red hot. So you know, it is tough making choices, but people really just have to do the best they can, not beat themselves up about it.
Yeah, totally. I think, yeah, good on them. I haven't managed to get out there, but I mean, it's half poetic to see a slave owner going swimming.
Yeah, that's right. The best comment I saw at the end of one of the discussions on it, that there's absolutely nothing to stop people still going along and look. If people want to go along and admire the statue, they're quite welcome to do so in the bottom of the harbour.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's yeah, good one. So, what's your last song, mate?
Okay, let's go through another section. I thought things like live stiffs, very much the DIY ethos, and one of the things that came out of the stiff thing, which I was pretty much into at the time, would have been 20 at the time, something like that, was this geezer here. Wait, hang on.
Was that Larry Wallace? Is it? I can't see.
Nick Lowe.
Yeah.
Of course, was the producer of the first, recognised punk single, New Rose, The Damned. In fact, as with many of the bands I've followed over the year, I came across them by strange coincidence. The reason that I got into the Stiffs and Nick Lowe and others was because of one of his early bands called Brinsley Schwartz played our school dance when I was about 15. And as soon as I was able, I would be getting on the train to go up to London to see Brinsley Schwartz at the Hope and Anchor in Islington, and then follow them all through until they kind of merged into Graham Park and the Rumour and other bands at that time. But
is that the album with Larry Wallace doing Police Car on it?
Yeah, it's got Larry Wallace, it's got Reckless Eric, Elvis Costello, Ian During the Blockheads, so all kinds of good stuff. And around the same time, in terms of trying to find the one to go for, similarly with the DIY ethos, there was the whole Welsh contingent with Ducks Deluxe and the Flying Aces and the Jets and Plum Crazy and Dave Edmunds, and they did some cracking stuff as well. And I did think of asking you to find one of these tracks, but I thought your chance of you finding that anywhere on video would be pretty remote. But anyway, I put that aside. I also put aside from the similar time the Greasy Truckers Party, which was a fundraiser for the kind of travellers and people like Release and the Travellers Aid stuff, people like Man, Hawkwind, Brinsley Schwartz, and so on, gigs at the Roundhouse in London. The album signed, in fact, by Man, signed by Brinsley Schwartz, signed by Hawkwind, even signed by Byzantium, who didn't play because there was the power cut during the gig because of the miners' strike. But anyway, I put that one. Did I put that one aside? Yes, I put that one aside because I thought we'll bring it right up to date. That when we're going around to all the events these days, there's a band that we come across many, many times during our summer season. I kind of jokingly, well, they're kind of like our house band. They're the musical equivalent of what Veggies do. They go and give the musical sustenance to protests in the way that Veggies goes along and puts the food in people's hands. So, of course, the band is Seize the Day.
Excellent.
So Seize the Day came out of the Twyford Down, Newby bypass, the whole road protest stuff. They're very heavily involved in the campaign currently against the Hinkley power station. They're very much involved with that. Theo and Shannon, the songwriters, live just over the hill from Glastonbury Festival, so we see them 2 or 3 times there. We've seen them outside we've worked alongside them on the street on Preston New Road at the fracking protest. I think one year we bumped into each other probably 5 times. Earth First Gathering, Northern Green Gathering, fracking protests. Soon as we arrived down in London last year, after the Smithfield, when we went round to the Home Office to set up our field kitchen there, and we delayed a little bit because we'd been given a little bit of the runaround by the police. But while we were waiting to find out where to set up, just around the corner was Seize the Day, playing a gig on the streets outside the Home Office doing Extinction Rebellion. So you can understand the kind of people they are. Now, the track I've chosen, which I've not actually been able to find yet on YouTube, is I Will Never Rest Until All Oppression is Ended. Sometimes we get ourselves a little bit jaded. We think, well, you know, we're in our 60s now, how much longer can we do this? Sometimes I think the time's come to slow down, let the younger generation have the head. Then we go to a Seize the Day gig, and when they play I Will Never Rest Until All Oppression is Ended, it puts the fire back in your belly, and hopefully it will put the fire back in the belly of the viewers of this little stream as well. So I hope you can find that one. You can always play it with some kind of pictures over the background if you like, or you can come back to me for an alternative you might find. There's things like they have a song called Ned Ludd, which is about the Luddites and putting them into the context of the way that people were trying to fight against the industrialization of their lives, not a million miles from where we are here in Nottingham. They do things like Food and Health and Drugs, Food and Health and Hope, which is about Monsanto. They do songs about the World Trade Organization and all kinds of good stuff. So I'm sure you'll find something, but the one that I suggest you start off looking for is I Will Never Rest by Seize the Day.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I'm sure Emma and Alex will find it if I can't. Right.
You could even get them to do a private little get. I bet they would do your private. Do you a live stream from their living rooms. If you want to get in touch with Theo and Shannon, I think they'd be pleased to do that on behalf of Punk for the Homeless.
That sounds good. Yeah, we'll chase that one up.
I think we should try and do that. Let's try and do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for volunteering to get in touch with them for us.
Okay.
And thank you very much for being on. And all the best with all the good work you're doing. Before you go, I don't want to just tell. Before you go, do you want to just tell the people of the world, and particularly Nottingham, what's happening with Sumac at the moment?
Okay, yeah. Hang on, lost myself. Okay, so let's just get that picture up. There we go. Look, there we go. So we're not going out and about serving our wonderful veggie burgers at the moment, although we do them down at Stentor Market. So because the Sumac Centre's pretty much out of business as a meeting space and gig venue and social club and bar, because Veggies are out of business in terms of caterers. I mean, we would last weekend have been at Belper Goes Green. Next weekend we would have been at Peace in the Park in Sheffield. The week after that we would have been on our way to Glastonbury Festival. So all of that is long gone, sadly. But nevertheless, we have storerooms full of the food that we would have been taking to cook the meals at those events. So what we've done is to take all of the food out of our stores, borrow some racking to put into the social space at the Sumac Centre, and basically turn ourselves into a food hub to give people that are shielded or locked down in the Forest Fields, New Baseford area, a safe space where they can get their food. They can send their orders in by email. We can package it up. They can either collect it from our garden, from a table in the garden, or we can drop stuff off to them. So we're basically running a COVID-19 food hub, including bringing in 3 deliveries of fresh fruit and veg every week, adding it to the running 3 bread machines to bake bread to add to the orders. So yeah, so that's what we're doing here at the Sumac Centre at the moment, is just stepping up to do a little bit what we do in terms of distributing food, but in a slightly different way to mark the times that we're in.
Excellent.
But the time will come when you can come back and get your veggie burgers again, I'm sure. So you have got that to look forward to.
Well, they look delicious.
So yeah, so it's been a good one. Thanks very much for having us along. Big up for all the stuff you're doing. You've just been a real powerhouse since that first suggestion of what to do. I think I might have suggested when it first became clear that you wouldn't be able to come to Sumac to put on a gig. I think I suggested to you or to Rachel, oh, why not put on a couple of gigs online? And so, of course, you then have to go away and put 40 gigs online pretty much every day of your life. So yeah, real big up for having done all of that.
Thank you very much.
Work all round. And well done to all of the bands and followers and supporters that have been chucking in their donations and doing special gigs to support what you're doing.
Oh, cheers, man. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. Thank you very much. Love to you, love to Rachel, and to everybody else.